Welcome to EC Motor Reviews channel. CCM Heritage 71T, 2023 on review. Overall rating. Next up, ride and brakes. 4 out of 5. April 5th. Author Michael Neves. Published December 21st, 2022. Updated December 22nd, 2022. Tipping the scales at just 136 kilograms, CCM's new Heritage 71T is incredibly light. Pull it off its suicide side stand and it feels more like one of those fat-tired electric bikes between your legs than a motorcycle. That's until you thumb the starter and its snarling 600 cubic centimeters motor barks into life. It's a two-wheel riot of carbon fiber and billet aluminium, but the Heritage 71T is also the first production bike to be built using a titanium frame and swing arm. It's why it's so light, and costs a whopping £29,995. CCM have been innovating with chassis tech since they were formed in 1971, by the man who was the C in CCM, Clues Competition Motorcycles off-road aficionado, Alan Clues. The Bolton factory produced the world's first aluminium trials bike, first aluminium bonded chassis, and former 500 cubic centimeters GP star, Neil Mackenzie won British championships on their Armstrong Badge 350. Based on their popular handmade Spitfire and built to celebrate the firm's 50th anniversary, but delayed by COVID for a year, only 71 Heritage 71T models will be produced. Its minimalist design might look sparse, but the detailing, fit and finish are MotoGP levels of special. A sub-10 Grand Cafe racer from any of the mainstream manufacturers would be just as enjoyable to ride, so if you haven't got a spare 30 grand knocking around, don't worry, you're not missing out. But the CCM will be worth it to the person with deep pockets and an appreciation of the engineering poured into it. It's a work of art you could stare at all day and never get bored, but it also works beautifully as a motorcycle with a lightness and purity to it that's a world away from anything mass-produced. Ride quality and brakes. Next up, engine. 5 out of 5. May 5th. It takes a CCM engineer a week to handcraft the Heritage's aerospace-grade 3L/2.5 VCW5R titanium chassis and apply its brushed satin finish. It's 6 kilograms lighter than the Spitfire's 4139 chromoly steel chassis. Not only is the 71T a featherweight piece of art that draws a crowd every time we stop during our test, it changes the handling dynamics. The chassis isn't as stiff as a steel-frame Spitfire's, thanks to the exotic material's more spring-like properties. But the CCM is still pure, direct, and there's none of the mush you feel riding a built-down-to-a-production bike with heavy components, sound deadening and vibe protection. You sense every tarmac ripple through the suspension and every suck, squeeze, bang and blow from the piston through your body. Forged Ollie 7-spoke 19 inches wheels save another 6 kilograms, which endows the steering with the unbridled directness of a race bike. Its roomy, upright riding position is bang on for the road, with bars placed low enough to weight the front end, but not your wrists. It's racy but still comfy, similar in layout to a KTM 890 Duke R. Wet December roads never let us push the CCM anywhere near its limit, which is a shame, but at wobbling about speeds the handling is crisp, well-balanced and confidence-inspiring, even on its balloon-shaped 130-section Maxxis DTR1 FT rubber, which would look more at home sideways on a dirt track than tarmac. Brakes are a clear highlight. Twin Brembo monoblocks aren't the best of the best on paper, but they're loaded with the kind of glorious feel and power missing from any road bike fitted with ABS. Brushing the front brake lever has the calipers hissing as they munch into the wavy CCM-branded Galfer discs to scrub speed off in a flash. Engine. Next up, reliability. 4 out of 5. April 5th. Like all CCM Spitfires, the 71T is powered by a compact, liquid-cooled single-cylinder motor, originally designed by BMW for Husqvarna. It makes a claimed 50 brake horsepower at the rear wheel, which is around 10% more than the standard Spitfire 6, thanks to revised mapping and an exquisite QR Racing titanium exhaust, free from heavy cats and sound-deadening Euro 5 shackles. As much as sculpture that wouldn't look out of place in an art gallery, it's hand-built from 64 individually welded sections. With so little weight to push around, its thrappy 50 brake horsepower is devilishly effective and has the urgent, free-revving feel of a competition engine, the clue's in the name. But despite the motor's hard edge and explosive soundtrack, it's perfectly fueled, predictable and easy to control, so need for electronic rider aids or modes, although an up/down quickshifter would be nice. It's a single and thrives on its meaty mid-range to thwack out of slow corners, but it'll also rev on to deliver a decent lick of speed, if you can handle the undamped, single-cylinder vibes that crescendo past 6,000 RPM. But that can be viewed as a good thing. The Rush 1000 never intimidates or scrabbles for grip, and even when you're going slow, the exhaust, quickshifter and auto blipper are still music to the ears, making all the right pops, bangs and crackles. It only does 31 miles per gallon. Not that most owners will worry at such thirst. You quickly get used to the way the MV goes serenely about its business, and it's only when you need to overtake and have to stamp down a gear, or 4, you realize how little grunt there is. In fact, the only time the Rush lives up to its name is when you hold the throttle to the stop, and when you do, be prepared for the ferocious acceleration of a superbike and the brain-drilling roar of a race engine. Reliability and build quality. Next up, value. 4 out of 5. April 5th. Build quality, fit, finish and attention to detail are everything you'd expect on a bike costing this much, and on our brand new test bike everything works perfectly. But what about long term? Well, MV Agusta have improved reliability since welcoming their new Russian owners, and with UK importer Crazy Horse now fully up and running, spares supply shouldn't be a problem. The whole MV range also comes with a 3-year warranty and 2 years roadside assistance. Value versus rivals. Next up, equipment. 3 out of 5. March 5th. Whichever way you slice it, the Rush 1000 is eye-wateringly expensive to buy and run. In terms of pure performance, it's no better than its super naked rivals and lacks their real-world grunt. But if you've got this amount to spend on a bike and don't want something run-of-the-mill or mass-produced, the MV will scratch your itch. Equipment. 5 out of 5. May 5th. It's the same riot of heavily sculpted and detailed luxury as the Brute Ale 1000RR, with swathes of carbon fiber and machined ollie parts, semi-active Öhlins forks and rear shock, Brembo Stylema calipers, Pirelli Super Corsa SP tires, MotoGP-style wings and a hand-stitched Alcantara-style twin-pad seat. It also has cornering traction control, 8 levels, and ABS, anti-wheelie, cruise and launch control, for rider modes, and a color dash that links to your phone. The Rush 1000 takes the decadence a step further. Your extra 4,800 pounds gets you around instead of teardrop-shaped headlight with cornering LEDs that fan out around the headlight like a peacock. They strobe when the ignition is switched on and illuminate one by one as the bike leans over. It also has a revised Super Veloce-like carbon tail section with a bottom of a beer can rear light and a satin gray paint job with red Batmobile flex. It wears a spoked wheel up front, and its forged ollie rear is fitted with a carbon hubcap fixed to the rear wheel spokes. Does it affect stability and sidewinds? No. You also get a race kit SC Project titanium exhaust and revised fuel mapping, which is a work of art and sounds suitably naughty. The Italian firm also creates the pipes for Marquez's Honda. MV Agusta Brutale 800 RRSCS, 2020, on review. Our test bike is the most refined, capable and exciting Brute Ale 800RR we've thrown a leg over. Everything from the power of its brutal Brembos, to the way it rolls beautifully into corners and the riotous din from its 3/cut pipes is feel-good overload. The hard seat is a pain after a few hours and it gets fidgety over bumpy backroads, but the MV handles and hangs on like a super sport racer over smooth ground. The Brutale 800RR has the most visceral auto blipper in biking. Rich, gravelly and mechanical, every burst of power shoots 3-cylinder chills through your body as each cog slices precisely home. It's just as tuneful on the way up, with a loud crack through the quick shifter as the revs kiss the red line. The MV's electronic shifters deserve a place in an orchestra, but that's not what makes the Italians so unique. There's an extra back brake pedal down by your right foot, and when you let the clutch out in first gear, nothing happens. It's because this is the new MV Agusta Brutale 800RR SCS Smart Clutch System. It still has a normal 6-speed gearbox with that blood-spitting shifter and blipper, but for pulling away and coming to a stop you never need to operate the clutch lever. It's impossible to stall. Think of it as a reverse slipper clutch. When the motor is underloaded it engages and gives you drive, and when it's not it disengages, so when you roll to a stop, in any gear, it acts like it's in neutral. To pull away, just select first. If you hadn't changed down already, twist and go. Based on a reckless automatic clutch from the off-road world and refined using the MV's ride-by-wire electronics, the system weighs just 36 grams more than a Brutale 800RR's conventional clutch. MV have got it working perfectly and even added that parking brake to stop it rolling away when it's parked on a hill. The gear will no longer hold it. It gives you the involvement and control of charging up and down the gears, but makes stop/start riding as easy as riding a scooter. You can still use the clutch normally if you want, to tease up a wheelie, perhaps, but you don't need to. We've tested MV's SCS before on the 2018 Turismo Veloce 800 Lusso. It makes a lot of sense on a tourer where you're doing lots of low speed and sometimes two-up work, but this is the first time an automatic clutch has appeared on a super sport naked like this. It's now also fitted to the 2020 Dragster 800RR. Once you're moving, the SCS doesn't make any difference to the ride, as you don't need to use the clutch with a shifter and blipper anyway, even at modest speeds, but when you slow down you don't need to feather the clutch or pull it in. Just stamp on the gear lever and let the clutch do the rest. With 138 brake horsepower to play with, the MV never feels slow, and there's so much mid-range grunt the Brutale is always straining at the leash, even in top gear. In fact, it has more oomph at road speeds than its 205 brake horsepower Brutale 1000RR sister, which makes the 800RR feel far more alive and exciting. It's also heavier and more involving than even the best big super nakeds, although with a chassis based on the original F3675 race rep, it isn't as spacious, and returning 36 miles per gallon it'll only do 100 miles before the fuel light, and 132 to empty. The SC's model is based on the updated 2018 Brutale 800RR, which got a new cylinder head, cams, primary gears, starter clutch, gears and ride-by-wire updates. MV also refined the chassis with calmer steering geometry, beefier engine mounts, tweaked suspension internals and lighter wheels. Reliability and build quality. Next up, value. 4 out of 5. April 5th. As you'd expect, the MV is finished to perfection and now even comes with a 3-year warranty and 2 years roadside assistance, which makes ownership more attractive than ever. We don't currently have any MV Agusta Brutale 800RR SCS owners reviews on the site, but the standard Brutale 800RR scores well. Its lack of fuel gauge was one of the main complaints. MV Agusta Brutale 800RR SCS rear quarter. Value versus rivals. Next up, equipment. 3 out of 5. March 5th. It isn't cheap and insurance will reflect its high-ticket value, so it's more of a machine for the fortunate few, but it's worth it if you can afford it, and the auto clutch gives it an extra string to its bow. There are plenty of cheaper alternatives to consider in the middleweight naked sector, including the Kawasaki Z900, Triumph Street Triple RS and Yamaha MT-09 SP. Equipment. 4 out of 5. April 5th. The 800RR has Brembo's fully adjustable suspension and grippy Pirelli Diablo Rosso 3 tires, but doesn't have the Brute Ale 1000RR's more advanced rider aids. But there's so much grip it's never a problem, and it still has traction/wheelie control, ABS, rider modes, and an up/down shifter. It makes do with a now old-school black and white LCD dash, with laughably dull idiot lights, but with most of your time spent looking at the road, a color display is a nicety you can easily live without. You've got a choice of two colors, red and gray or silver and gray. You're able to customize your bike via MV's website, where you can buy bits like exhausts, levers, mirrors, and additional equipment such as paddock stands. 70s Superbike Stunner, MV Agusta Super Veloce 1000 Serie Oro. MV Agusta may not have been directly participating in the EICMA show in Milan last week, but it didn't stop them stealing the headlines with this stunning Super Veloce Serie Oro. The carbon-clad superbike uses the Brute Ale 1000RR as a base, meaning the same 998 cubic centimeters inline 4, producing a claimed 209.1 brake horsepower with a race kit installed. Inside this motor, you'll find a countershaft that rotates at twice the speed of the primary drive shaft with the aim of reducing vibrations and promoting faster cornering. You also get the same frame and single-sided swing arm, but now clad in carbon fiber bodywork inspired by MV's 1972 500 GP racer. Sitting alongside the smaller, three-cylinder Super Veloce 800, the Serie Oro is planned to hit dealers in the middle of next year at a price of approximately £50,000. In total, 40 elements of the bike are finished in carbon fiber, including a set of winglets that MV claim produce 39.2 kilograms of downforce at 199 miles per hour. You also get carbon fiber disc brake covers, which attempt to pay tribute to the drum brakes of old whilst also cooling the calipers, essential on a bike capable of such high speeds. MV Agusta also claim the design allows air to flow around the brakes towards the coolant and oil radiators for better temperature control. There are air vents along the carbon fairings, too. Despite the superbike credentials, the Serie Oro has deliberately been made more comfortable and less extreme than traditional circuit stars, and it features electronically adjustable Öhlins NIX forks for a high-quality ride. They are matched to an Öhlins TTX rear shock, which bolts directly to the swing arm. As you'd expect for a bike of this caliber, stopping power comes from premium Brembo Stylema monoblock calipers, which bite onto chunky front 320mm discs. You also get 5-spoke forged aluminium rims, and 4 under-seat exhausts, just unlike the company's landmark F4. In addition, there is a suite of lean-sensitive electronics, plus a 5.5 inches TFT color dash to control them, with the added option of mobile connectivity. Dan Sutherland. By Dan Sutherland. News editor, sports bike nut, and racing fan. You may also like. It's a machine of two halves. For the most part you'll only ever experience its calm, friendly side because the meat of its power is so far away from what's usable in the real world, but poke it with a stick and be prepared for the ultimate rush. Ride quality and brakes. Next up, engine. 4 out of 5. April 5th. With its stiff tubular steel trellis frame, single-sided swing arm and electronic Öhlins suspension, the Rush 1000 uses the same rolling chassis as the Brute Ale 1000RR. It also boasts an impressive, mouth-watering collection of exotic parts and, let's face it, divisive styling, but does it actually work as a fully functioning motorcycle? The good news, if you're reaching for your wallet, is yes. It's a delight at pottering speeds and comfortable for short trips, until its hard seat eventually takes its toll, but there's lots of legroom and the bars aren't set too wrist-crunchingly low. Ride quality is as sumptuous as you'd expect from a bike sitting on top-shelf suspension, tires and lightweight wheels when the road is flat, but with such a stiff chassis it can be a handful over bumps, even with the electronic Öhlins softened off. And while those Brembos